Once upon a time, if you had asked me what I thought about roguelites, I'd have told you that they weren't for me. How could they be? How could a game with randomized environments and enemies be better than a carefully crafted experience? And why would I want to play a game where all my progress could be erased by one poor decisions? I make poor decisions all the time. I had played a few mystery dungeon type games, and they compared, well, let's just say that they compared unfavorably to RPGs like Final Fantasy or The Witcher, action games like the Zelda series. But what game realistically could go toe-to-toe with those heavyweights? Then something happened that made me re-examine roguelites. This is a story of how two wildly different roguelite games changed my mind about the entire genre. Super Bullet Break describes itself as, among other things, a deck-building strategy game. Now, I play tabletop board games, and deck builders are one of my favorite genres. Couple that with my love of manga, and Super Bullet Break sounded like an instant win, a great game, a guaranteed winner. So I picked it up digitally from the Nintendo eShop. The game was tough, but addictive, with great music and even better artwork. The main game has several chapters to play through, with more chapters to play in the post-game. Each chapter features a randomly generated map that... Wait. Randomly generated? Oh no. I had been tricked. This was a roguelite. Those lazy developers hadn't delivered a handcrafted experience with each map, relying instead on some sinister RNG to create the layout. Surely this reliance on random elements led to a subpar experience. Only, it didn't. Super Bullet Break is fantastic. Good enough that I tracked down a physical copy of the special edition, and it is also, apparently, a roguelite. Failing a run at any point means starting the entire run over from the beginning with the basic deck and no items. In fact, I'd argue that Super Bullet Break is closer to a roguelike than a roguelite, as the only thing that persists outside of individual runs is your progress in unlocking various characters in the compendium. These characters are simply unlocked, not added to your initial deck. There's no material benefit that persists as a progression element after failure. So why did I love it so much? And more importantly, why was I succeeding at more runs, despite the fact that previous failed runs left me with no tangible progress? What intrigued me about Super Bullet Break, beyond the cute art and the catchy music, was how knowledge of the game was rewarded. And here I think we start to get at the heart of why I was wrong about roguelites. Most video games reward skill, fast reflexes, precision, and accuracy, situational awareness. A person who has these things is largely going to succeed at most games, particularly action-oriented games. Think of the skills required to play a first-person shooter well, and how those skills in general translate pretty easily into other games in the genre. A lot of games reward time invested. Think any sort of mobile free-to-play game here. Your skill in the game is secondary to how long you've been playing it, unless of course you pay real money to catch up. Roguelites in general, and Super Bullet Break in particular, reward knowledge of the game above skill or time invested. Sure, knowledge comes through time spent with the game and is applied by skill, but it's the growing body of knowledge that allows for success in Super Bullet Break. You learn what cards work well together. You learn enemy patterns. You learn best choices in events, and so on. If you spend 100 hours with the game, but don't bother to pay attention to card effects or deck synergy, the time spent won't be rewarded with success. But maybe, for me, Super Bullet Break was just a one-off. There aren't many roguelites out there like it, so maybe I enjoyed it in spite of the roguelite elements, not because of them. Yeah, there was that pesky fact that the roguelite elements are what led to the importance of game knowledge. No tangible benefits from runs means that your knowledge of which cards to add to your deck is super important. But this didn't mean that roguelites were good, did it? Surely not. And then along came Moonlighter is one of those games that has sat on my Nintendo wishlist forever. It has the dual benefit of being highly regarded, I see it on recommendation lists all the time, as well as frequently on sale. Recently, the Complete Edition, which includes the base game and a DLC expansion, was on sale for less than $5. It may still be on sale as of the time this video goes up. If it is on sale, I cannot stress this enough. Do not buy it unless you have copious amounts of free time on your hands. Moonlighter is a roguelite action game with combat somewhat reminiscent of top-down Zelda games. But that's only the dungeon crawling portion of the game. It's also a store management sim. The basic gameplay loop looks like this. You enter a dungeon, progress as far as you can through randomly generated rooms, battling monsters and collecting loot, until you either beat the dungeon boss or pay a varying amount of gold to escape the dungeon. At this point, you return to town with your hard-won loot, which you can either use to craft weapons and gear or, and this next part is seriously, dangerously addictive, you can use it to stock your store, where you set the prices of items based on how well they've sold in the past and current popularity. You can then use that gold to upgrade your shop. So the game becomes this addictive, satisfying loop of getting loot, selling it, purchasing upgrades. Getting loot, selling it, purchasing upgrades. Loot, sell, purchase. Loot, sell, purchase. That surge of dopamine you get when you beat a tough boss in Moonlighter, or Super Bullet Break for that matter, is enhanced even more by the knowledge that you didn't beat it by upgrading your equipment to max levels, or maxing out your character's stats to godlike levels. You beat it by learning its patterns and figuring out valid counters. Moonlighter, while being wildly different from Super Bullet Break, nevertheless is also a game where your skill is less important than your knowledge. And yes, I know that this aspect of games is not unique to roguelites, and that it can be found in other genres of games. That's not the point I'm trying to make here. The point is that I was wrong about roguelites. Are they going to deliver the incredible story of Xenoblade or The Witcher? No. Will the gameplay be as accessible as Halo or Mario Kart? No. Will they provide epic experiences like Nier or Skyrim? No. But what they can provide, if you approach them on their own terms, is an opportunity to dive incredibly deep into a game. If you're stuck on a boss in a standard RPG, you don't necessarily have to become well-versed in the game's systems, environments, enemies, etc. You can always just grind levels until you're able to absolutely body all enemies. Not so in a roguelite. Each new enemy requires you to learn new patterns, new tactics, new ways to cope. And over time, enemies, even bosses, that destroyed you the first time you encountered them will become commonplace and easy to defeat, not because of your character's stats, but because of your own knowledge of the enemy. So that's the story of how I learned to stop worrying and love the roguelite genre. My journey into this genre has just begun. If you've made it this far in the video, I want to thank you for joining me for these first steps into the world of roguelites. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking the video and subscribing to this channel. In the near future, I'll be uploading a video focusing solely on Super Bullet Break. If you didn't enjoy this video, leave me a randomly generated comment below. Either way, I'm X0, and I'll see you next time.